I'm Nicole Johnston, and you're listening to 7am. Israel's passed a new law to execute Palestinians convicted of deadly attacks. It passed through the country's parliament, despite the opposition of both Israeli and international human rights groups, as well as the UK, Germany, France and Italy. Israel's National Doctors Union has refused to carry out lethal injections, so those convicted will face death by hanging. The government argues the law will deter future Palestinian attacks, and some right-wing Israeli politicians wore noose-shaped pins in parliament. Today, Israeli journalist Amira Hass from the daily newspaper Haaretz on capital punishment, settler violence and expanding settlements in Palestine. It's Tuesday, April 14.
This week, Palestinians protested a new Israeli law that expands the death penalty for killings classified as acts of terrorism. Human rights groups say the law is expected to apply exclusively to Palestinian prisoners in the occupied West Bank.
Amira, you've lived in the West Bank for almost 30 years. Could you start by explaining to us what this new death penalty law is, and why are some experts saying it'll be used against Palestinians but not Israelis who are convicted of similar crimes?
Look, you don't need experts to know that this law only applies to Palestinians. First of all, Israeli Jews who live in the West Bank are under Israeli civil law, not military law. And if they commit a felony or a crime, they are being prosecuted in Israeli civil courts, not military courts. So this is one thing. The second thing is that in Israel proper, the Israeli civil court is mandated to sentence to death anybody who committed the crime of murder and terror in the intent to deny the existence of Israel, of the state of Israel. And this is kind of a code, a euphemism for saying that this is only a Palestinian can intend such a thing and not a Jew. And the government of this state are boasting about the law that they have passed or have accepted, this law of death penalty.
So how would these executions be carried out?
By hanging.
Those convicted have to be hanged within 90 days without the possibility of an appeal.
The guards of the Israeli prison service are supposed to hang them. They will be there and they will be hooded. Their faces will be covered. They will not be seen by the doctors who will be present or the other officials that will be present. They will not be known or seen.
But if you look at the wording of the text, it talks about those convicted of killing Israelis with the, quote, intent to negate the existence of the state of Israel, meaning it won't apply to extremist Israelis who kill Palestinians like we've been seeing recently in the West Bank, for example. Now,
this law was passed through the Israeli Knesset by the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his ruling coalition. How are they justifying the law? And how much support for it is there in wider Israeli society?
The main argument that they give is that this law is supposed to deter Palestinians from committing terrorist attacks, as they are called in Israel. In a recorded message that Israeli citizens have received, including myself, over the phone, we heard the voice, the very cheerful voice of the Minister of National Security, Itamar Ben-Gvir, where he said he was proud about the passing of this law that his party were promoting for several years already.
They've already started ordering red uniforms. They're opening a death row wing, setting up a facility, because you need to have a facility.
He said that this law will make Israel more secure, more moral, and more just. These are his words. But this is complete nonsense, because many of the Palestinians who do resort to very extreme acts of killing are known to be ready to die. Death does not deter them. Even those who throw stones know that now soldiers are very likely to shoot at them and to kill them.
Settlers are being emboldened. They are taking matters into their own hands, and that they are being protected effectively by the military and by the police.
Or even if they don't throw anything and are just demonstrating, the Israeli rules of engagement now are so lenient that a soldier or a policeman can shoot at a car full of civilians and then say, I felt threatened, and that it will be excused.
Grief and fury in the occupied West Bank as mourners took to the streets of Taman on Sunday to bury a family of 4, shot dead by Israeli forces while driving through their own village.
Now, as for the number of people who support it, I haven't seen polls that are connected to the law that has just been passed, but in November 25, 80% of the people asked, and I believe that these are Jews who were asked, supported the death penalty to the Nukhba members. This is the unit that perpetuated the onslaught on October 7, Hamas unit. But the law that was passed does not apply to them because it is not retroactive. So what I see in this law is mostly a manifestation of revenge and intimidation and terrorizing the Palestinians, not really deterrence of terror.
And Amira, I know that this issue of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails is also at the core of Palestinian national identity. 1 in 5 Palestinians has been inside an Israeli jail at one time or another. So how is this law being received across the West Bank? Or is it a case that Palestinians right now are focused on much more immediate problems, settler violence and land grabs, that the law hasn't registered so much?
Both are true. I mean, there were demonstrations in several cities, also in Gaza and in the West Bank.
Hundreds of protesters have taken to the streets across the Palestinian territories, and after Israel's parliament passed a measure establishing the death penalty by hanging.
People are alarmed, of course, because if there was any hope until October 7 of prisoners and their families to be released, the only hopes were either political agreement that has become more and more impossible in the last 15 or 20 years even. And the other option was an operation of taking soldiers as prisoners or others. And this has failed, as we see, after October 7, because the price that the Palestinian society, and especially the Palestinian society in Gaza, the price that they had to pay for the few hundreds of prisoners who were released was far too high for people to support it now.
But looking at the breakdown of the data from the health ministry as of January 26, let's take a look. You'll see that they note that 71,660 people have been killed. At least 171,419 Palestinians have been injured, many with life-altering wounds. That's 1 out of every 14 people in Gaza.
I think that right now, this death penalty shows that Israel is getting more and more extreme in its policies towards the Palestinians. It comes together with all the other policies of economical strangulation, of conditions in prisons that are really sadistic. I don't have any other word for this.
So this is an analysis in October of last year that argued that the real number as of October of 2025, of course, was closer to 130,000 people killed.
More and more annexation of land inside the West Bank.
In August, the Israeli government announced plans to proceed with East, or E1, a plan to build 3,400 homes for Israeli settlers on Palestinian territory that would essentially split the occupied West Bank in two.
Of taking half of the Gaza Strip and actually concentrating the whole population in half of the territory that was anyway so small before October 23.
It is a landscape of complete and utter devastation. It's very hard to see a single building that hasn't either been destroyed or blown up. And there are no civilians, no signs of life here.
It goes together with the unchecked attacks of settlers against Palestinians, attacks that brought to the expulsion of thousands of Palestinians in the last 2 or 3 years. and also before 7th of October. So everything is so intimidating. This is what's so frightening, that it's a society that in its most part stands behind the government, the most extreme right-wing government ever, and supports it.
Coming up, as the world focuses on Iran, has Gaza and the West Bank been forgotten? Amira, even before the war in Gaza started after October 7, Israeli settlements had been expanding. And this year, we also had the Israeli government introduce some new laws, which activists say have strengthened Israel's legal control over the West Bank and weakened the Palestinian Authority. And they've also made it easier for Israeli settlers to buy land.
Israel's cabinet on Sunday voted in favor of beginning a process of land registration for the first time since 1967.
So what's happening there now?
All of the same and more than that. And actually what is happening since before October 7, but more so after October 7, is the carrying out of the execution of a plan that the Israeli Minister of Finance now, and he is also in the Ministry of Defense, this is Bezalel Smotrich, and in his plan, which he calls the decisive plan, he gave Palestinians 3 options after stating that Palestinians will never be allowed to exercise their national rights inside the land between the river and the sea.
When I published the decisive plan, and later another chapter about Gaza, I wrote that we would have to conquer Gaza.
One is to accept this reality of no national rights, and that there will actually be second or third or fourth or fifth rate subjects in Israel, greater Israel, between the river and the sea. The second option, the one that he prefers, is that they will emigrate outside of the country. And the third option, if they rejected the 2 first ones, is that the army and the Israeli security authorities will show them, will know how to deal with them.
We will settle Gaza, we will apply sovereignty in Judea and Samaria, yes, and we will encourage the emigration of the enemy out of here. There is no other solution.
Now, on top of this, about half a year ago, he came out with a map. He showed a map of the West Bank with 6 enclaves. These 6 enclaves, if I'm not mistaken, comprise 18% of the land of the West Bank. And that's where Palestinians are supposed to be. And this is the process which is happening now. Palestinians are being chased out of the majority of the territory of the West Bank into those enclaves, which means he is creating smaller Gaza strips in the West Bank, which are supposed to be densely populated by Palestinians. No land, no agriculture, nothing. Will be just 6 huge, how could I call it, concentration camps. People will hang me for this. But these are areas where Palestinians will be concentrated so that the majority of the 72% of the West Bank will be free for Jewish settlement. This is what is being carried out now.
So, Amira, we know that the world's now focused on Iran. So do you see anything changing on the ground in the West Bank? Or do you think it's more likely that while the international community is occupied elsewhere, it's looking away, that we see Israel continue to change laws, to strengthen its control, and as its critics say, to give settlers a free rein in the West Bank?
You know, the free rein that the settlers have is because the state is behind them. So we should not see the settlers as something separate. Look, I usually say that I don't like to give prophecies, but it seems that right now the world really doesn't listen. Israel is really committing so many crimes and violations and enhancing its expulsion policy, then the Palestinians rightly feel completely orphaned or abandoned by the international community. There are voices, there are movements that understand the danger that Israel puts the whole world with these policies. But of course, when we are still under the shadow of Trump, it's very hard to think about the West Bank or to pay attention to the West Bank and Gaza, and to Palestinians in Israel too, that are exposed to Israeli more and more racist laws and policies. So right now, what I see is a very, very bleak future.
Amira, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Also in the news, Iran has dismissed Donald Trump's declaration that the US will soon begin blockading ships entering or leaving the Strait of Hormuz. After peace talks between American and Iranian negotiators collapsed over the weekend, Trump said the US Navy would stop any and all ships from passing through the crucial trade route. Iran is warning that any military vessels approaching the strait would be dealt with severely, while the Speaker of Parliament says Tehran will not surrender under threats. And Pauline Hanson says a convicted rapist who'd been working as One Nation's campaign manager has now been sacked. Sean Black was jailed for rape in 2018 and rehired by the party 2 years later, after serving his sentence. One Nation had come under attack after coalition figures raised questions about Black, but Hanson says she'd received no internal complaints and that he'd done a great job since returning to One Nation. I'm Nicole Johnston, and this is 7am. Thanks for listening.